Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's spotlight session on mechanical engineering. This is the second session in our series of virtual information sessions highlighting the programs offered here at Lassonde School of Engineering. Thank you for taking the time to join us. We're excited to share everything you need to know about studying mechanical engineering here at Lassonde. Before we get started, I'd like to mention that I'm joined today by Anna, our domestic student recruitment officer, who is here to help answer questions you may have about the admissions process. Now, without further ado, let's dive in. So, to start off, my name's Jamil, and I'm a mechanical engineering ambassador here at Lassonde. I'm currently in my fourth slash fifth year since I've done a co-op, so I'm kind of behind a bit on my academic courses. Originally from Amman, Jordan, which is a small country in the Middle East. It's very small, so it's fine if you don't even know it. Um, part of many different extracurricular activities on campus. I'm part of the undergraduate program committee, which is basically a committee hosted by the mechanical engineering department to make sure that they follow like continuous improvements on the courses. I'm also the mechanical representative with the Lassonde Engineering Society. Basically, if any student has any problems here at Lassonde, they can just come up to me. If they don't feel comfortable to talk directly to the course instructor, they can come up to me and just let me know of any issues they have. And I'm a vice president of a culture club, the Iraqi Culture Club here on campus. And just to give you a quick background as to some of my experience that I have interned at BBA. It's an engineering consulting firm that specializes in mining, and I've worked there for like roughly a year. I've also joined Amazon as a data analyst intern. I've been there, I've worked there for a summer or two. And last but not least, I'm a big fan of horseback riding. It's my favorite thing to do ever. Just to give you a quick idea of what that's me in the photo, and that's my capstone project that I've worked on for the whole year. As you can see, like it's very much heavy mechanical engineering based. I'll I'll explain it later on in these slides. So in today's spotlight, we have several things lined up for you. I'll first touch down on what is mechanical engineering and basically explain how is it broken down, like your process and like throughout Lassonde. Basically, you start with a common first year, and I'll be talking about the key courses, some of the skills that you will acquire along the way, some of the co-op and extracurricular opportunities that some of the Lassonde students have had in the past, and like very like in the past semester or so. I'll also explain some of the support and resources that you can get on campus. And then we're gonna have a quick FAQs if that are like that a lot of students usually have. And I personally had some of those questions before I even joined Lyson. Finally, we'll have a live Q&A. If you guys have any questions, you can just drop it in the chat as we go along too. So, to start off, what is mechanical engineering and how does it start here at Lassonde? Basically, we start with a common first year engineer courses for all of the engineering majors. This is basically to provide a strong base for every engineering student at Lassonde. And then before you take the full decision, you can just take a look at the different courses, what you like and what you don't like, so that it can kind of help you to like commit for your second year courses and how you're gonna progress. For mechanical engineering specifically, there are several key courses that you're gonna be taking in the first year that are gonna be like the highlight of your first year. Let's put it that way. Um, you're gonna start off with the engineering mechanics, and in that specific course, which is basically learning, like in simple terms, it's gonna be a course where you learn how to make free body diagrams. If you are going to push a tray, what kind of forces are you putting on it? What kind of resistance you're gonna be facing? How can you calculate that? All of that in simple terms will be studied in the engineering mechanics in the first year course. Going on to linear algebra, which is basically it's gonna be a bunch of matrices. Um, And then in the matrices, you can use them to further like kind of use them in applied math so that like as you go up in the years in mechanical engineering, you're going to be using a lot of basic foundations such as like energy is always conserved. And linear algebra is one of the key courses to kind of prove that energy is always uh conserved basically. And then going to calculus where you will be learning you're gonna have calculus 1 and 2, but calculus 2, which is the math 1014, that's the course label basically. In that specific course, you're gonna be learning most about the integration and the derivation process. And then in that one, um, you're going to be learning about how to calculate the acceleration and velocity using the derivation process. And then you're going to be taking the Renaissance Engineering, which is the NG 1101 course. And in that course, you're going to be taking the first communications ethics and like the standard of writing technical reports, and how can you really look at like as an engineer, you might have a lot of technical knowledge, yes, but portraying that knowledge and delivering that knowledge to non-technical fields is as important as knowing that technical knowledge. So in the NG 1101 course, you're going to be first introduced onto how to deliver the technical knowledge briefly onto different majors. And then finally, but not least, it is you're going to be taking ECS 1011, which is computational thinking. And in that specific course, you will learn the basics of coding, specifically on a software called MATLAB. For that course, I think the highlight would be the final project, which is um, programming a plant, an automated plant system where it's gonna like there will be a sensor that's gonna read the moisture level of the plant, and then it's gonna pump water directly to ensure that the plant doesn't die out. That honestly, that project was the highlight of my first year personally. Going into what is mechanical engineering, basically, in mechanical engineering, there's a lot of hands-on from day one. As I said, you go in from the very first year, you're going to be working on hands-on projects, even when you go on to second year. And in that specific year, you're going to have a lot of more on the technical side of courses and you will have more projects. You will have some courses like Mini Design 2, which I'll talk about later on in these slides. And it is basically, personally, I would say it's the most engineering with the most hands-on from day one. Going on to and basically in mechanical engineering, you're gonna have a lot of strong industry connections and co-ops. Since mechanical engineering is very broad, you can have a lot of different options. You can work in many different fields, so you will have a lot of chances to like network, talk to different people, build those industry connections, and work in wherever, almost in whatever field you want to work in. And then going on to and in mechanical engineering, you're gonna have a lot of supportive and inclusive community. As I said, there are literally committees that are made just to support the students and to make sure that there's continuous feedback and improvement. And if you have anything, I would say in mechanical engineering here at Lausanne, if you have any issues, you can just straight up go and talk to the undergraduate program director. Just let them know what are your problems, and they can always talk you with it and then figure out a solution. There's also a huge emphasis on engineering design thinking. This is something that I've also noticed that as I interacted more with more mechanical engineering students, mechanical engineers usually know how to start a project from A to Z, and they know how to design it, how to write down the reports. They know the technical stuff, the non-technical stuff, how to deliver it, how to present it even. Because the way the curriculum here at Lausanne is built is that mechanical engineering is a basically you can say it's very much like hands-on engineering with design thinking, with like properly writing down technical reports. So I would say like along the way, you're gonna know a lot about and you're gonna learn a lot about design thinking basically. And as I said earlier, there's a lot of flexible pathways and specializations. You can basically work anywhere, wherever you want. Because I know people that worked in many different fields from mechanical engineering, going all the way from nuclear to telecommunications to mining, to you name it, and you'll definitely find a mechanical engineering somewhere. And then some of the curriculum highlights that I would say, some of the courses that you're gonna be taking is like Mini Design 2. These courses usually pick up after like second and third year courses. Mini Design 2 is a second year course, and in that course specifically, you're gonna be working, you're gonna get machine shop training. You're gonna learn how to use the lathe and a drill mill. And if you don't know what these devices are, it's fine. You're gonna learn it along the way here at Lasan. You're gonna get a certificate that's gonna basically certify that you know how to use those devices and machines, sorry. And these are very important skills, and it's part of the hands-on learning process. In Mini Design 2, basically you're gonna work on a project. At least in my year, we worked on a project which was an automated solar panel tracking system that floats in the water. We had to use a lot of the machines to kind of like machine some of the devices, and like some of the parts we had to machine them in order to kind of like plug them into the like the system itself, and then ensure that the whole system works. Going on to machine element design, that's a third year course. In that course specifically, you're going to learn a lot about the gears and shaft failures. Basically, if you're wondering how, for example, like let's say that you have a shaft, like for example in the wind turbine, how does the shaft of the wind turbine carry a wind turbine that's like thousands of kilograms weight basically, and how does it not break apart? How can I make sure that this system is not going to collapse on its own? In that course basically you're going to learn how to design the gears and the shafts, and how to make sure that the whole system is going to work smoothly without failing. And then going on to another third year course, which is the fluid dynamics. In that course, you're gonna learn about flow modeling. Let's say, for example, that you went to your backyard and then you turned on the hose, like the water, and then you're wondering how do the water particles, like let's say that you put your thumb on like at the end of the hose so that you can change the flow of the water and make it stronger, or like even faster at some edges so that you can water your plants. Basically, in that course, you're going to learn how to model the flow of the water in the pipe and as it leaves the pipe, which is honestly very interesting because, like, when you think about it, like, how do the particles flow? How do, like, stuff that you see the water flowing, how can I know that? How can I anticipate how is it going to flow? And then going on to the fourth year, which is a simulations course, and basically, you're gonna learn how to use a Star CCM Plus, which is an engineering simulation software. In this course, let's say that you want to design a stop sign on the road, and you want to know how can I make sure that the stop sign is not gonna fly away. How much wind can this stop sign withstand without it flying away? Basically, you're gonna learn how to simulate. You're gonna design the stop sign, and then you're gonna place it. You're gonna put in the conditions that you need to put in, which you're gonna learn along the course. And then you're gonna simulate it, and then you're gonna see a visualization of how to know like when is it gonna break, what's the maximum wind speed it can withstand, and all of that. And finally, going to another fourth year course, which is a life cycle analysis. Now, if you wondered, just like me, in the news, when you read the news and then they talk about like, oh, so our biggest climate change contributor are the cars. Now you're wondering, how did they know it's the cars and not something else? Why is it not, for example, the factories or something else? Basically, they do a life cycle analysis, which is they study a whole system from scratch, from the moment of production till the moment it leaves the warehouse where it was, sorry, the factory where it was produced. And then based on that, they break it down into smaller subsystems to kind of convey the message to non-technicals, and so that they can tell them that, for example, producing this car is going to produce this much carbon dioxide and it's going to affect the weather by this much. So that's the fourth year course, which is the life cycle analysis, which is honestly a very interesting course because when you think about it, you hear a lot of like the news and like they talk about like, oh, so this is affecting more than this and this is affecting more than that. So this is the course to study how to know which one actually affects more than the other. Now, for opportunities and valuable experience here at Lassonde, let's start first with the most common one, which is the co-op, which a lot of people nowadays look the most into. So basically, there's a lot of different positions as mechanical engineering you can go into. There's the engineering trainee, which is basically if you want to work at a consulting firm, let's say whatever kind of consulting, let's say mining consulting or structural consulting, you are going to get a position called engineering trainee. Let's say that you don't want to work in the technical stuff. You want to work somewhere less technical and something more on managing stuff. You're going to go, you can get into project engineer. And then as a project engineer, you basically manage, but you still have the technical knowledge. Since you're a manager, you should be aware of what's happening around you. Now let's talk about what are some recent employers of the Lausanne students from the mechanical engineering department. We have Atkins Realis. Atkins Realis is a consulting firm in nuclear, basically, and they work heavily with in terms of like the nuclear energy and the renewable side. And then we also have Suncor. Suncor is it is a very big company in oil drilling, located in Alberta. I personally know a lot of Lausanne students from the mechanical engineering that went to Suncor, at least four. And it's a very good opportunity because like if you're thinking about like oil and gas, like it's one of the best companies honestly out there, or at least here in Canada. And then GM, which is the General Motors. I believe everyone here saw a GM car at least somewhere in their neighborhood. And ERCO, which is a company that specializes in chemical solutions for other big companies. So basically, they just produce like whatever chemical substances that other companies use in their factories. As you can see, and as I mentioned earlier, mechanical engineering is very diverse and it's very broad. You can go from nuclear to chemical to oil and gas to cars manufacturing. It's a very good option. And then let's talk about what's provided by Lausanne. You have the support of the academic advisors, and if you want to get more involved, you can join the co-op student panels and LES. LES is the Lausanne Engineering Society. Basically, it's a student-run society that's basically made by the students for the students here at Lausanne. And then if you're looking to stay more on the academia side, let's say research, for example, there are summer opportunities for you, which is with the USRA, the NSERC, the LURA, and the RAY. These are all like terms to kind of just say it's a paid research assistant position here on campus. Um, and then there are different labs with the mechanical engineering department that you can be part of. Well, there's the Idea Lab, and this lab I personally worked with the past year. We were working on a 3D printer that's going to be placed in a device that's going to simulate like hypergravity. So it's honestly interesting to just see and learn like from those different labs. And then there's the Cooper Lab. The Cooper Lab is basically a lab that studies the solar panels and how can you like maximize their efficiency. And ways to get extracurricular involvement here at Lausanne. You have LES, the Lausanne Engineering Society. You have the York U Robotics, which is basically a club ran by the students to develop a robot or a rover with an arm that kind of picks up material and it basically this robot competes with other different universities. And then you have the York Concrete Canoe. Basically, you guessed it from the name. You need to build a canoe made from concrete, and then you're gonna test it. And then you have the Lausanne Motorsports. Basically, they're working on developing a car that will be used on like racing different cars from other universities. And then like for different, let's say, different events that you can get more involved into. There's like the best hackathon, and in this hackathon, here at Lausanne, you would be able to, for a weekend, you would work with your friends for a weekend, and then you'd come up with an idea. You'd pitch it to different judges, and if you win, you would basically turn this idea into a business startup, and then you can kind of continue working on it throughout your degree. I highly recommend to start with the best hackathon since first year, especially since like it's gonna give you a lot of time to establish throughout like your the next 3 years or 4 years that you're gonna be spending at Lausanne. And then you have the Unhack, which is very similar to the Best Hackathon, but this is more targeted towards, let's say, the UN SDGs, which are basically the goals set by the United Nations that the world needs to meet in order to make the world a better place overall. And then you have the CIRC, which is the competition for the York Robotics, in which they would be competing with the other universities and see where does the York Robotics stand there. Now, for different means to kind of network with the industry professionals and other students, you have the PEOC, which is the Professional Engineers of Ontario Student Conference. This is basically a conference that occurs at different places, at different universities every year. You can go over there and then you can be part of that conference to kind of network and mingle. There's usually professionals from the industry. You can meet recruitment people from different companies. You can learn more about, and you can build different connections basically. And then there's the CSE, which is a Canadian, the Conference for Sustainability and in Engineering. And it's very similar to PEOSC, but this one is tailored towards sustainability. And then you have Kale, which is a conference of advocacy and leadership in engineering. And then you have the Industry Night. Industry Night is basically an event ran by York Robotics here on campus here on campus, so that the students can mingle directly with employers coming to kind of hire from Lassonde. And then going on to some of the resources that you can get along the way, there's the pass specifically for first year. It is very useful, honestly, because I did a lot of pass courses, and pass is basically most of the first year common courses. You can go there. It's you can say it's a tutoring session that's provided for free for the students. There is an upper year student who already did very well on the subject, usually A or an A plus, and they kind of teach it to the students. I used it for Math 1013 and 1014. It was very useful as like if you like, let's say your example, you're in class and you don't have time to kind of stay back with the professor, or like or like you just need an extra um support on a certain question. You can go to a past session, and many different student sorry, and the past leader would love to support you over there. And then let's say that you are feeling somehow stressed and throughout the semester you need some support. There's always the Bethune counseling. It's a walk-in counseling session which is free, provided by the Bethune College here on campus. And it's very useful specifically. And this is not tailored to any specific year. You can just go in whenever, as long it's just a walk-in throughout the year, and you just go in and you just get whatever help you need.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jamil. You share so many interesting and valuable insights into not only mechanical engineering as a program, but also student life, right? Like you mentioned, there's more to Lassonde, there's more to mechanical engineering than just, the courses you take. Of course, you mentioned a number of very interesting and important courses, but you've also painted a picture of, the larger student experience, which hopefully our prospective students who are watching this right now find helpful. It gives them a sneak peek into life at Lassonde. I'm sure many of you at home right now have some other questions that we haven't addressed just yet. So if you have any questions, do not hesitate to put them in the chat or the Q&A. I am keeping an eye on it, and we've saved the last 10-15 minutes minimum of this session for live Q&A. So feel free to drop your questions in there. We'll get to them near the end. In the meantime, though, we've prepared some frequently asked questions that we receive on the recruitment and admissions end. So let's get started and take a look at those while some of you write your questions in the chat. So Jamil, this is a question we get a lot, right? What is the difference between mechanical engineering and other engineering programs, or what would you say is one defining factor or core aspect that stands out to you about your program?
Honestly, I would say like in terms for this program specifically, I would say like the thing that makes mechanical engineering stand out is how diverse and broad it is. Now, like you can work from anything. Like for example, you can be working, as you can see, from an Excel spreadsheet, plugging in graphs, to 3D printing an engine that you did either as a hobby or for a course. And then you can also simulate, as I mentioned earlier, the stop sign. And this was literally one of our courses that we did. As you can see, like like it kind of gives you a sneak peek onto how things work in general in like around you and everywhere. You like the skills that you learn, other than technical knowledge, which is obviously as important, but you learn how to kind of understand things more. Because like mechanical engineering, like you do a lot of hands-on and you do a lot of design. You do a lot of breaking down into subsystems, understanding them, and a lot of problem solving, basically. I would say that like that what makes mechanical engineering something more special than the other engineering majors.
Right. And of course, you're not biased at all.
Oh no, yeah, definitely. I'm definitely not biased.
Not at all. Um, so on to the next question I have for you then is I personally, especially as the recruitment officer for Lasan, get a lot of questions of, why Lasan, right? And I always say, it's best to ask someone who's been in those shoes, someone who had to make the sometimes overwhelming, difficult decision of where do I go to study, right? So personally for you, especially as an international student, I'm curious as well, what made you choose Lassonde? And then out of all of the engineering majors, then decide on mechanical engineering. I'm sure you have a story for us there.
Yeah. So basically, I would say the reason why I chose Lassonde is because it has a lot of diversity and like the community life here at Lassonde. Just like it kind of gives you like let's say it's the closest thing to home away from home, kind of, and it feels like Lassonde see like ever since I came here, I felt very welcomed, and the chances that I got and the opportunities that I've done, they're very diverse. As you can see, I went on a competition with Lassonde students in China last summer, and then I did one of my complementary electives in Costa Rica, where we literally had to just walk next to waterfalls and learn about the nature over there. And as you can see, I've been to many different conferences and I met a lot of cool people along the way. I feel like Lassonde was the reason as to why I got access to all of that. And if I went to a different place, it wouldn't have been the same because here I feel like there's a fair chance for everyone to kind of accomplish whatever they're looking for.
Yeah, and I often get, of course, the question of comparing Lassonde to other universities, especially within the Greater Toronto Area. And of course, I don't know enough about the other universities to speak on those. I can only speak, obviously, on what I know about our school. And one way I like to put it is that because we are a medium-sized engineering school, you still get that sense of community like you mentioned, that home away from home feeling. I think that is sometimes a little difficult to have when you're going to a very large school or one that is perhaps a little bit more focused on competition rather than community. And I think something that we really pride ourselves on, I hear a lot from our current students and even, from our ambassadors like yourself, is that you feel like you are in a collaborative and supportive space at Lassonde, which I think is what has contributed to some of these experiences, right? That you've shown here is that you were able to go to some of the experiences with peers who you call your friends, and then you're able to meet other people along the way to kind of build that network and that support. Mhm,
Yeah, exactly.
mhm. So next, I'm curious, are there certain qualities or traits you could use to help to, I guess, describe someone who might, I don't want to say find success in the program, but who might, be good, a good fit for the program. Especially because sometimes students don't know, right? They think they hear mechanical engineering, oh, it has great prospects for this and that, but they don't know if it's the right fit for them. So what would you say to someone who's wondering if the program's a good fit for them?
Honestly, I would say ask yourself like several questions. Starting off, do I like hands-on? Are you a person that likes to get their hands dirty and kind of work with things, trying to figure out how to solve them? Another question, am I versatile? Like, do I like changing am I set on something that I'm sure that I want to work here and here only? As we can see, like on a daily basis, everything changes very rapidly. So like it's very hard to kind of get your head like straight on something and get set on something. So, and then like just by asking yourself this question, like, do I know exactly what I want? Like, do I really want to become, for example, whatever, a nuclear engineer, for example, or if you don't know the answer to these questions, I would say sorry, specifically that question, like, do I know what exactly I want? I would say go into mechanical engineering. It's very broad, it's very general, and you gain a lot of important knowledge, whether it's like soft skills or whether it's like technical skills. It kind of helps you figure out what you want. Because I know a lot of mechanical engineers that started their second year, which is basically the start of the mechanical engineering. And they didn't really know what they want, but like along the way, the more courses they took, for example, thermodynamics, fluid dynamics, and the simulations course, they kind of figured out what they want. And it's like mechanical engineering really helps you find what you really want to be. All of that while learning and gaining a lot of skills. And then add on top of that, one last question that I used to ask myself too, do I like problem solving and design process? Like I know it might seem like, oh, like every engineering major does that, but like mechanical engineering really, really does that. Like, you learn the design process of almost everything around you. And if you don't know it, you know how to start it. For example, how do you produce a laptop, or how do you, for example, dispose of a laptop? As a mechanical engineering, you kind of know how to do all of that, which is why I would say, like, if you ask yourself those questions, and then you answered yes to do I like hands-on, am I versatile? You answered to no, do I know exactly what I want? And you answered yes to do I like problem solving? Then I would say mechanical engineering is a great fit for you.
Yeah, I really like the perspective you provide that there are some students who go in knowing exactly what they want to do at a young age, right? Some students come to us asking about our programs and they are in grade school. They are in, the first few years of high school. So they're pretty, certain to a degree on what they want to do. But then there are some students, it's perfectly normal for them to be figuring out as they're doing it. So that's not to say that you won't have the opportunity to, really specialize in your upper year courses. Of course, there are very specific courses you'll be taking that have very
Mhm.
technical skills, as Jamil has gone over a number of them already. But kind of in the process of that, you're figuring out what it is that you want. So I think mechanical engineering has a lot of transferable skills that you'll gain. Where if later on you want to pivot, you want to do something maybe a little different from what you originally thought, you still have the engineering skills, the problem solving, the conflict resolution, all of those soft and hard skills to make that pivot, which I think, like you mentioned, is really important in an evolving industry where we're constantly changing and hopefully improving, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm actually going to now transition to our next question, which links to one of the questions in the chat, which was any advice, tips, strategies, tricks, anything that any wisdom you can share with us for someone who either is starting university for the first time or they're starting the program, right? And they don't know kind of how to prepare. What advice would you have for us?
Honestly, what I would say is that since first year, like the moment you start, talk to your professors. Don't be scared. I know at the beginning it's gonna be like intimidating a little bit, and like you're gonna feel like a bit nervous going up to your professor. It's totally fine because I personally felt all of that and I've been through that. Like, and I even remember that I used to, even like if I have a question, I used to just like, oh, you know what? I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm not gonna do anything sometimes. But like that is like I wouldn't say that's the right way to go around it. I would say like go talk to your professors. Don't be scared. In fact, professors at Lassonde and specifically at mechanical engineering department, they like it when you go up to a professor and talk to them. They feel like, yeah, like they're teaching the students and the students are absorbing the knowledge. They understand it and then they come back with even more questions. They want to learn more. This way, you're kind of pushing the professor indirectly to give even more and to kind of like add more knowledge onto his courses. And then I would say like try new things. You know what? Like you saw an ad on like one of the YourQ newsletter, and then you saw something that says, "Oh, do your complimentary elective abroad." You know, submit it. Like, do it. Why not? Or for example, you're like, "Oh, I wish if we had a club that specializes in satellites and antennas." You can go ahead and open it. You can establish the club. Why not? Keep on trying new things because that would actually kind of push you to like know exactly what you want. I and it's totally fine if you're scared at the beginning because again, I've been through all of that. But that would be one of the best advices I would say. Like keep on trying, don't be scared. Because specifically, I know you heard this a lot, but like, oh, like as a student, it is your time to make mistakes. And it is actually your time to make mistakes. Keep on doing mistakes. No one's gonna be running after you and be like, oh, you did this wrong or you did this wrong. Just do it. If it's wrong, you're gonna figure it out your own. And then you're gonna fix it and then you're gonna learn from it. I would also say break out of your comfort zone. I know like being in the comfort zone is kind of like, yeah, like, oh, I'm comfortable here. I don't want to go any further. But like, no, like for example, like if you feel like you wanna do a little bit more to get an A plus. Why not break out of your comfort zone, study a little bit more, ask more questions, send emails to the professor, ask the TAs, be involved and be engaged. If you, for example, if you need a study session with friends, send them and text them. Let them know that, oh, hey, let's organize a study session. Like if you find it better for you to kind of study that way. Make friends because at the end of the day, human beings are social creatures and you need to be interactive with other people. Making friends, like, it kind of makes the whole process easier. Like what I used to joke with my friends about it, like we all like kind of trauma bonded since second year. Like we like if you go on to second year, you're like, oh yeah, first year was kind of easy, but then like you start your second year and then you're like, oh my God, this just got 10 times harder, which is kind of part of the journey because like it builds your character, it makes you like a better person, and you learn a lot from it. And the best way to kind of make it easier for yourself, spread the stress along you yourself and your friends. All of you guys together doing one assignment, mm, definitely not a problem. And again, as I mentioned, don't be scared to be wrong. It is your time to be wrong. In fact, you're gonna learn a lot and you're gonna grow as a person too.
Thank you. I hope our the students who are watching like appreciate your candid response because it is engineering is a rigorous program. You know, it is going to be, we often get the question of how tough is it? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong because you're in the program, but I think it's tough, but it's manageable. And I
Oh yeah,
always say
definitely.
just, yeah, and I always say to students, um, I hope you feel empowered to do it all on your own, but I hope you don't feel like you have to or that you should, right? So the tips you gave about reaching out to professors, to TAs, to advisors, to your peers, looking for support there, I think will get you even further than you had imagined in the first place. So again, it's something that we really truly value here at Lassonde, and we hope that you feel when you join us, you feel like you're part of a community that allows you to do that, to reach out when you need to.
Yeah,
All right, so
exactly.
we've gone over of our questions. I'm sure, as I can see here, there are handfuls of questions in the chat. So maybe we can just start to knock them out one by one. So, Jamil, do you have any, I guess, advice for or tips for studying? So there's a student wondering, like, okay, how do you study for maybe certain um, courses? Do you change your tactics? I guess what mini advice would you have?
So honestly, in terms of studying, I personally kind of like I like going to class, and I know that this sounds like very like common sense, but like in fact, like when you get into engineering, you kind of get carried away and you kind of start skipping classes a lot. So I would say like going to class and understanding in class rather than memorizing in class is one of the best ways to like study. And then going home, and then when you tackle an assignment, you don't just look at an assignment in terms of like, oh, the assignment is due Friday, I'll just get it over before Friday, and you know what, like whatever answer I write down, that's it. No, try to actually break down the question, understand how to solve the question, because that like in the future, like along the way, you won't need to study again. Because like in fact, once you understand it once, no matter how much you forget it, you understood it. So like once you look at it again, you're gonna understand how to solve it again. So this would be my advice onto how to study. Like I would say going to class, understand class, ask questions in class, because sometimes even like if you ask a question, right, and then based on the reaction that you get, you kind of just have it engraved in your head. Oh, so this was the reaction, so like yeah, I'll never forget this. So you kind of like understand that very well. And then let's say the other thing that I would say that I mentioned, which was, oh god, I'm blanking.
Comprehension over memorization,
Yes,
understanding,
exactly.
right?
Understand it and then break it down so that when you look at it, you know how to do it.
Yeah, especially in engineering, right?
Yeah,
Because not every
exactly.
problem's going to look the same. So it's better to understand a problem or figure out how to understand a problem and then be able to apply it rather than
Yep.
just cramming information or memorizing straight from the textbook. This is a more, I guess, uh, specific question to declaring your major. So I'll give my kind of perspective from the recruitment missions, and then Jamil, maybe I'll let you talk a little bit about how that looks at the end of first year, like declaring your major. But on the recruitment end, so just a reminder to everyone here, there's, as Jamil mentioned, there's common first year, right? So some students go in knowing I want mechanical engineering. That's what I'm going to do starting second year. Some students don't know or not sure yet. So you'll all enter first year engineering. And then if for those of you who are certain that you want a particular major, you can let us know even before the end of first year what that is. If we have, and that's part of our engineering guarantee process. So you should have already received emails about this. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, check your email. Don't just check the inbox. Make sure you're also checking your promotions, spam, junk tabs, all of that, because sometimes they get lost in there. I won't go into too many details about the engineering program guarantee process since we had emailed about it. But for those of you who had completed that, you can secure a spot in mechanical engineering, knowing that you'll enter mechanical engineering even before first year. But let's say for those who are not sure right now or they're still debating, what does that declaration process look like in first year, Jamil?
So basically what's gonna happen is that like in the winter semester, you will submit a form where you're gonna rank your engineering preferences, the top three, and then basically based on your GPA, and then based on um yeah, mainly based on your GPA, you're gonna be taken into your preference
Yeah.
starting with the first one. For example, let's say you put mechanical engineering and then computer engineering and then software engineering. And then let's say your GPA allowed you to go into mechanical as since it's your first option, you're going to go into mechanical. But if your GPA does not allow you to go into mechanical, they're going to look at your second preference and then it's going to go like that. And then yeah.
Yeah, and I will say some students wonder like how competitive it is to get into different engineering majors. There are a lot of factors because sometimes it depends on the year. Some years, like software and computer engineering are very in demand. And so obviously there are only so many seats that are available in these programs. And obviously then you have to aim for a higher GPA and hope that there's a spot available in order for you to be able to declare that major. I will say as of this year, so 2025, when we're looking at what students have told us already about which programs they want, we're seeing a more even distribution. And so I don't foresee currently an issue with students declaring their first choice. For fall 2025 entry students. Okay, so for those of you who have applied for fall 2025, of course, I can't provide any guarantees, but I want to provide some reassurance that right now it's looking as if as long as you're eligible to continue in engineering, you should be able to get your first choice. The little asterisk, though, is that mechanical engineering is our largest engineering program. It is also our highest demand engineering program. So if you want mechanical engineering, it is a really, really good idea to submit your engineering program guarantee and get that reserve spot for you even for first year. If you have any questions about that at the end, I'll put in my email and everything, and that way you can send a more specific question to us about that. Moving on to the next question, Jamil, you mentioned that you've done co-op before.
Yes.
And so the student's wondering how you balance co-op and workload or courses. So what did that year look like to you?
So basically when you start co-op, you kind of you don't take any other courses with it unless I think you're allowed only one course with that with the co-op since basically you're working full-time job. So like and that specific course has to be outside the working hours. So usually what students do, including myself, we take a complementary elective each semester so that we can kind of finish our complementary electives as much as we can by the time we finish our co-op. As for the workload itself, usually the in co-ops, so you have the academic advisors and like the co-op advisors. You can talk to them if you have any issues with your employer or anything. And usually employers like they do understand that you're a student and still with like let's say you're still learning and you're in a learning journey. So they're usually flexible and more open to listening to whatever you have inputs and ideas that you want to do. Because like for example, I remember at BBA, even though it was a very big company, and I was the first undergrad intern that they had. And when I went there, right, they were like learning as I was learning too, because they were like, okay, so first they gave me a very big task and it was very technical, and then I looked at them and I was like, okay, so I'm still learning how to do this. And then they kind of like broke it down with me. So they kind of just sat down with me and then yeah. So it's very like, let's say you can balance it very well.
Wonderful. Any tips or tricks for balancing, let's say, work and courses? So if you're working part-time or if you have other commitments outside of school, how do you manage that and an engineering course load?
I would say like if you're working part-time and a course load, the most important thing is having a proper schedule. Because honestly, you'd be doing a question and then subconsciously you just spent like 3 hours on it, and half of your day is gone on a question, and then, oh no, I have a meeting I gotta run to at work, so now I don't know. So like I would say like personally, I use the calendar on my phone with like alarms 10 15 minutes before every single thing I have. This way I can kind of always like remember, yeah, so like in 15 minutes I have a meeting. So whatever question I'm doing right now, I'll stop it, I'll go do my meeting, and then I'll come back to it. And creating a checklist, a to-do list. I know this sounds very basic too, but like just having a pen and paper checklist, write down what you need to do for the day one by one, and then when you're done, scratch it off. This way, you'll never forget what you need to do. And if you have an application to submit, if you have an assignment due, or if you have something that's due for your job, you can kind of just like write it down and you'll never forget it.
Great advice from an upper year student, someone who's been through it. Um, Here are a few more technical questions. So we have some students wondering if you are taught how to use SolidWorks in the program and MATLAB in the program. Any
Yes, so basically you're gonna learn MATLAB in your first year, and then you're gonna kind of like touch back to it on, I believe, in your second year, and then in your fourth year again. That's for MATLAB. You're gonna be working on many different projects on MATLAB. Like you would do either like, for example, data analysis, or you're gonna do, for example, you're gonna create a, since I mentioned like the machine element design course, you're gonna build in equations and formulas onto MATLAB so that it can do some of the shortcuts that you can implement it. And then as for SolidWorks, as I said, mechanical engineering is a design process. So you're gonna learn SolidWorks in your second year. You're gonna use it almost in every single semester since second year all the way until you graduate.
so it's ingrained.
Yes, exactly. So you'll definitely become an expert.
Fantastic. This is a question, I guess, more for me actually. So there's a student here who's been admitted to a different program. For them, it's science, and they're wondering if it's possible to eventually transfer into engineering. So I'll tell you kind of what, even though this is maybe a better question for academic advising, it's a different unit within Lassonde. They'll give you advice on academic matters such as, degree progress, program changes, all of that. But at least on the recruitment admissions front, for students who are really keen, if let's say they don't quite meet admission requirements for engineering right now, but they're really keen on starting their studies, they don't want to delay, right? Of course, it is possible to start in a different program and then look into the internal transfer process of changing programs into engineering. I would say in general, it's not usually recommended. And that's because all of our engineering programs are accredited. As Jamil had mentioned, there's a set curriculum, right? So a lot of first year courses, or rather, all first year courses are mandatory, and courses you take in other programs are not transferable into engineering, right? So for some students, they may have taken a bunch of courses in another program that they can't actually apply to their engineering degree. You may feel like you would have maybe spent some time and money on courses that can't go now towards a degree that you actually want. So that's not ideal. And also, engineering tends to be a more competitive program, which means there are more limited seats. And so, if you're looking to transfer into engineering, it really depends on when you actually want to transfer, whether there are seats available for you to transfer into. So you could be a top tier student, but if there are no seats available, then you might not actually be able to transfer in. Of course, I'm saying all of this very generally. It is case by case basis. You can apply for the program change, speak with your academic advisor, get good advice on which courses to take in your first year that maybe are more likely to transfer into engineering, and also making sure you apply early to do the program change. The earlier you get that application in, the bigger the chance that you might be able to get a spot in engineering. So it is possible. Is it highly recommended if engineering is your top choice? I wouldn't say so. I would always say direct entry into the program is best. Even if you don't meet admission requirements now, if you need to take an extra term or two, so use the summer term or the fall term to take the prerequisites that are needed to apply for winter entry, because we do offer January entry for engineering as well. That's an option available to you. And that way, you're in the program that you want from the get go. Okay, so that's my advice, at least on the admissions front. Back to mechanical. Now, Jamil, you are upper year student. You're probably, you know, your career, job searching is probably on your mind. You're not quite there yet since you're still completing your studies. But in general, what would you say, based on your experience or what you heard, what the job market looks like for mechanical engineers? Or would you say that's better, worse? How does it compare to other engineering fields, or is that difficult to compare?
I would say it's well, I'm biased too, but like I would say like mechanical engineering is like I would say the market, no matter how like bad it could get or like good it could get, there's always demand for mechanical engineers. Um, and I mentioned this earlier, and honestly, it is the highlight of mechanical engineering. You can work anywhere, anytime. There's no limitation. So I would say like for the time being, at least, it might be a little bit harder to land a job,
Mhm.
but it is still like I would personally say it is still way better than many other engineering specializations out there.
Mhm.
Like in mechanical engineering, like you can get a job faster than I don't know if we can name other
There,
specializations.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, but like
We
you
don't
can
want to like
definitely,
pile on other engineering majors, but I do think you're right in that because you've emphasized how broad the program is, there's so many transferable skills. It's so difficult to put a mechanical engineer in a box and
yeah,
say you can only do this or this is the only job that you're qualified to do. There may be some specializations that because they're so specialized, again, it could be a pro or con. Because if it's very
yeah,
specialized, that means only you can do it because only you have the skills to do it, right? But if
yes,
it's broad and they're looking for someone more well-rounded or versatile, like Jamil, you mentioned earlier, versatility is so important as a mechanical engineer, then maybe the job market's looking much more vast for you,
yes,
right? Because
exactly.
you're like, oh, this particular job, even if it doesn't have mechanical engineer in the title, it's looking for these skills and this degree, a Bachelor of Engineering, and I have that, and I have these skills that I got through my engineering degree, right? Is that fair to say? I don't want to put words
Yes,
in your mouth,
exactly.
but
Yes.
I had to go in and be like,
Yes.
wait a second, this is a trick question. We're not trying to talk poorly about other engineering programs, but we will, of course, in today's spotlight session, a little biased towards mechanical engineering.
Yes.
There are a bunch of really, really good questions here in the chat. A few that unfortunately we weren't able to get to today for the session. I do know that it's 6 o'clock. So what I'll do is I'm more than happy to maybe move into the conclusion of today's session, but I'll stay behind to answer some of these questions in the chat really quickly. That way, Jamil, if you need to head out after this, you're free to. If you're able to stay behind, we can address them together. But at least then we can kind of wrap up and let everyone who needs to go at 6 leave
Okay.
on time. Okay. So I do want to just again thank you all so much for taking the time today to join us for this really hopefully engaging session on mechanical engineering. If you have any questions even after today's session, after some reflection, or if you simply would just like to stay connected beyond this, there are a number of ways you can do so. If you scan the QR code in the top right corner of your screen right now, you'll be brought to our Discovery Days website. You'll see all of these opportunities on that web page, including if you want to see us on campus, get a tour of our facilities, lab, student spaces, you can join us for a weekly tour. Jamil is going to be leading a bunch of those tours in the summer for us. So if you're around and you want to ask him more questions in person, sign up for a tour. We'll have more dates posted in May. So don't worry if you don't see anything there right now. Of course, like Jamil mentioned at the beginning, this is the second of our series of spotlight sessions. This month and well, I guess these few weeks. So feel free to check out our schedule there if you're interested in another program at Lassonde, or come and listen to one of our student panels where you'll get a variety of perspectives on student life at Lassonde. And of course, if you have other questions that you'd like to chat to us about, you can always email us. Our email address is right there on the screen, ask@lasandeschool.com, or you can join us on Discord. So our Discord server is called Lassonde Community, and Jamil, other current students are on there. And we also have admissions experts on there as well. So you can always dump your questions and drop your questions in there, and then we can get to them sometimes a lot quicker than email. So I highly, highly recommend joining our Discord. But that's it from us today. So again, we hope you stay in touch. If you have other questions, feel free to stay behind. We'll get to them. But we look forward to welcoming you to our campus very, very soon. Thank you again for your time today, and let's chat soon.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.